So welcome everybody to this special gathering of the World Jurist Association. Thanks to the World Law Foundation. Thank you to all of you attending from different parts of the world. And let me introduce you to this first opening session of the next World Law Congress. We're just enjoying the results of the last World Law Congress in Colombia. And we are already in our journey to next World Law Congress in New York, July 2023. We're starting our discussions that will lead us to the United Nations Assembly Building, General Assembly Building in July 23rd, with this topic of what is going to happen with energy prices and energy sector in Europe after the crisis, the war in Ukraine. So are we degasifying Europe? Are we going to modelize, to change, to reverse our leadership into climate change, into a new green economy? What is going to be the impact of the war in Ukraine in our policies towards a green world and climate change war? So that's going to be the topic today, and that's connected with human rights. So people have access, need to So Viviane, the floor is yours. We would love to explore, as Monsieur Europe, Jean Monnet explained, Europe has been forged through their crisis, its crisis, and it will be the result of the solution to this crisis. So we are all discussing in Europe what is going to be the new prices of energy, what is going to be the resources of energy. Are we really challenging our leadership, world leadership, in green energies? Are we going to really reverse the situation where we're already in transition to a new model of organizing energy in the world? So Viviane, the floor is yours.
Hello, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. I'm speaking to you from a very unusual place for this conference, from the premises of the European Parliament in Strasbourg. And while doing so, I would like to convey to you that it is a historical week in Strasbourg. You know that the European Parliament has its plenary sessions once per month in the city of Strasbourg, and the plenary session this week will be a historical one, because it will really go for the world's most ambitious set of climate laws. The voting will take place in the parliament on the Fit for 55 mega package. So this is about 8 legal proposals. There are going to be hours and hours of debate and hundreds of amendments brought forward by the European parliamentarians. The topics which they will cover today is the reform of the emission trading system, the ETS, the carbon border tax, the sets binding national emission reduction targets, the social climate fund, the revision of the land use and forestry regulation, the emission standards for cars and vans, the aviation emissions, and I leave it to there, but you have understood that this is a huge package, and the degree of the ambition of the parliamentarians of all European nations this week will show to which side we are going, and will be also an answer to the question which Mr. Cremades has asked now. Are we going to be determined for building a green future, or are we going to be afraid because of all the crises which are happening in this moment? Crises which are happening in this moment, I do not need to explain to you, because the 24th of February this year, when the wave of destruction started, was a shock to everybody who would have thought that Europe is out of war mongering and that this will not happen anymore on our continent, but it did. And of course, it increased the pressure on the energy markets. And during 2021 already, there were severe tensions because of the volatility of the gas prices on international markets. This led to record heights in electricity prices in Europe. And to the question, is this fair for the citizens, and is there a necessity to change the electricity market? So because there is this extraordinary historic week in the European Parliament, one of the participants who should have been with us, Peter Liese, as an announced speaker, he cannot sit with us because he's one of the negotiators of this whole package. But we have extraordinary speakers today with us. The first one, Miguel Arias Cañete, my colleague in the Commission for quite some years. He was during 2014 and 2019 the European Commissioner for Climate Action and for Energy. So if somebody knows about the politics of this whole dossier, it is Miguel Arias Cañete. His experience before that is a political one, a Minister of Agriculture. He was a senator and also a member of the Spanish Congress of Deputies. We have with us also Cristina Lobillo Borrero. She is Director of the Energy Policy in the Directorate General of the Commission responsible for energy. So who better than she knows the position today of the Commission, which is the government of Europe, in this huge dossier. She is also a graduate of law, and she was working at the universities of Cordoba and Alcalá de Henares before she joined the European Commission. And our third speaker is Javier de Cendra. He's the Dean of the Faculty of Law, Business and Government of the Francisco de Vitoria University. He holds a PhD in climate change law and a master's degree in energy and environmental law. So he has not only working now in his research center, but he has really studied in the universities of Leuven and Maastricht in order to know the matter very well. And he is a honorary senior research fellow at the University College of London today also. So we have specialists here, really specialists who can, from a different point of view, bring you to this matter. And I would like to start at once with Miguel Arias Cañete. So Miguel, the floor is yours. Tell us your experience as an expert, and most of all, your experience as a political leader.
Thank you, Viviane, and good afternoon to everybody. The main topic of this encounter is titled Degasifying from Russia or Degasifying Europe. The quick answer is we have to do both things. For reasons of energy security, we have to phase out our dependency on Russian gas, but to do so, we have to accelerate our energy transition towards climate neutrality in 2050, substituting fossil fuels with renewable and clean energy. From the point of view of energy security, we have to realize that the European Union is importing at the moment 90% of its gas consumption, but Russia provides more than 41% of the European Union total gas consumption. It's around 155 billion cubic meters a year. So phasing out gas from Russia is not an easy task, and the Commission and the other institutions are making all the right efforts to achieve this target. The Commission started with a communication in the 8th of March under the title Repower EU, the first one, telling that the European Union can reach independence from Russian gas well before the end of the decade. So that was the framework. But the Commission also said at that stage that to phase out our dependence from fossil fuels from Russia, not only gas, but also oil and coal, the Commission said that full implementation of the European Union Fit for 55 proposals would lower our gas consumption by 30%, which is equivalent to 100 billion cubic meters in 2030. So the package that is being discussed today is fundamental, not only to fight climate change, but also to deliver energy security at these very complex moments in the war in Ukraine. But the Commission also said that together with additional gas diversification and more renewable gases from loaded energy savings and electrification, all together have the potential to deliver jointly at least the equivalent of 155 billion cubic meters, which is the actual imports of Russian gas. This is also an exercise who will require additional expenditure, more than 200 billion euros from now to 27. But those expenses will pay back because the European Union will save 80 billion euros in gas import expenditures, and in addition 12 billion in oil and 1.7 in coal. The Council of the European Union also agreed on the target of phasing out dependency from Russia as soon as possible, as said in the Versailles Declaration. And there was something that happened that has not been probably appreciated, the importance of that event, which is the joint statement between the European Commission and the United States on European energy security that happened on the 23rd of March. But it's a very important step forward because the United States and the European Commission declared a commitment to reducing Europe's dependency on Russian energy. They created a joint task force on energy security, and the United States was starting to work with additional partners to ensure additional LNG volumes for the European market for this year, at least for 15 billion cubic meters. And the European Commission will work together with member states so that we have a stable demand for additional US LNG until 2030 of approximately 15 billion cubic meters per annum. So there is action on the ground. The Commission put another stronger plan, the Repower EU plan, requested by the European Council. And the Commission considers that we have to have even much more ambitious targets than we have in the past, because the Commission has proposed to increase to 13% the binding target in the Energy Efficiency Directive, and to also have a target of 45% on Renewable Energy Directive. These efforts of the Commission are going to accelerate the energy transition, but are going to be able to phase out also Russian gas at higher speed. It won't be easy. It won't be easy. It will be challenging, and the Commission also has established targets for hydrogen, and also has for solar photovoltaic panels. So there is a lot of activity in this process of accelerating the energy transition, including working also how to solve the problem of slow permitting. So we are on our way to phase out Russian gas. It's pretty clear. If there is a commitment from the Commission, there is a commitment from the Council. The European Council has supported all these efforts, and there is a compromise that probably before 2027 we will not be needing Russian gas. But at the same time that we are leading with this crisis of Russian gas, because we will be able in the future, in 2050, we will have a climate neutrality, and in that area, in that moment, there will be not fossil fuels in the energy mix. But in 2030, still the fossil fuels will be an important part of the energy mix. But the Commission is doing all the right movements towards this solution. The problem that we have at the moment is that at the same time that we have to fight with the way Russia and Gazprom handles gas, we are facing in the shorter time a very increase of prices in the energy sector, and that's enormously challenge. There have been voices telling us that we should change the way our markets are working. And that's a much more complicated thing, because to decouple from Russian gas, we have very pretty clear ideas. Everybody shares the need to diversify suppliers, routes, the need to accelerate the energy transition. That's not the problem. The problem is that to face the higher rise prices, also Russian gas has influence in this exercise. Many people raise if the gas is true, if there would be intervention in the gas markets. And the European Union electricity market is based on a marginal pricing methods and the pay as clear market, which means that everybody receives the same price for electricity at wholesale level. But as gas-fired plants are currently still frequently needed to meet electricity demand, the price of gas has a big impact on the cost of producing electricity that we are experiencing now. But there is also a consensus in the European Union that the marginal pricing model is the most efficient for liberalized electricity markets and the most suited to foster electricity energy transition, energy trading, across member states on the wholesale market. And a more important thing is also tailor-made to promote integration of renewable energy, which drives down prices thanks to the operational costs. So interventions in the markets entail risks for long-term investments, such as investment in renewables. And this regulatory risk, the risk that the regulatory environment will change during the life of the investment, will lead to higher financing costs, which are particularly relevant because renewables are highly capital intensive. This will slow the energy transition and make it more costly. Very recently, ICER has made a final assessment of the European Union wholesale market design. It was delivered in April 22, and ICER concludes that the benefits of the market, the last decade cross-border trade, and the major effort done to integrate electricity markets in Europe have delivered big benefits for consumers of approximately 34 billion euros a year. The electricity market design also facilitates the significant update of renewable generation, and the acceleration of which is likely to prove a prerequisite to achieve the European Union's ambitious carbonization trajectory at pace. So conversely, ill-designed emerging measures or distorting price signals by interfering in market price formation may roll back market integration and overall competition, endangering the benefits achieved up until now and possibly increasing the overall cost of the energy transition ahead. To conclude, I will say that phasing out Russian gas is underway. All the needed tools have been put on the table by the European Commission. The Council has backed this strategy, and we will probably, before the end of the decade, around 2027, to get rid of gas. But also at the same time, we have to reduce our gas consumption for reasons of achieving our climate targets. And I have to end saying that the European Union has the most ambitious climate targets of the world. They have solid policies needed in the legal framework to achieve them. And as we are underway, we will be able to decarbonize our economy. And the problem of Russian gas will be something of the past in the future if we continue to do the things well as we have been doing up to now.
Thank you, Miguel. That was a heavy load of explanations on where we are standing, and as you rightly say, how difficult it will be, although we have a very clear and ambitious targets to arrive there without difficulty, not forgetting the investments and not forgetting the citizens. And now I turn to the person who has in her hands in this moment the policies of the European Commission, of the European government, and who has been drawing the vast and important package the Parliament will discuss and vote on this week. So, Madam Cristina Lobillo Borrero, can you please explain where we are standing and where we are going, and how we can make this? It won't be easy of Miguel to say after some years, well, we have done it nevertheless.
Thank you very much. First of all, to the World Law Foundation for inviting DG Energy to this event. And thank you very much, Madam Reding, for your introductory remarks, and to Miguel Cañete as well for your explanations on the current moment that the European Commission is leading with regard to the different energy policies work streams. So allow me to, I will be very structured and brief because many things have already been said, but allow me to start by giving some background. Before the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, we already experienced a very high surge of prices, energy prices in the European Union. Prices in particular, the last October, gas prices increased due to the increase in global demand due to the recovery of the COVID-19 pandemic. And immediately after the invasion of Ukraine, first of all, it's a human tragedy. It's a word that the European Union has condemned strongly, but also has made very relevant the need to accelerate our energy transition and to review our energy landscape in the European Union. Our leaders in Europe have already discussed 5 times in the European Council how to deal with this situation. And the outcome of all these discussions have been the REPower plan that was adopted by the College of Commissioners the last 18th of May, and also endorsed by the European Council. First of all, allow me to also to make one important point. REPower is about getting independent from Russian fossil fuels. But we need to do it through a wide range of actions, tracing across all the dimensions of energy policy. We need to do so for one fundamental reason. Russia is not anymore a reliable supplier for the European Union. If we look at the most recent events, I would like just to mention 3 or 4 that will give you an idea of the dimension of the dramatic situation that we are living in the European Union. Gazprom decided to cut gas flows to Bulgaria and Poland, also electricity and gas to Finland, and also they issue a decree, they adopted a decree that obliged companies in Europe to pay in rubles. This is considered for the European Union a breach of the existing contract. And many other events have happened really linked to this decree. In Netherlands, the company Gasterra also decided not to pay gas in rubles anymore. So this means that we are somehow accelerating the situation in the European Union, how to get more independent about Russian fossil fuels. This is also very much linked to the sanction policy. Very recently, the 6th package of sanctions against Russia was adopted, and here there is an inclusion of ban of oil from Russia, only seaborne, not the gas that comes to the European Union through the Druzhba pipeline, but it's an important and significant step ahead of our policy against Russia in this very particular time of invasion. So this is the first point I wanted to highlight, just to give you a little bit of background. And secondly, repower, as I said, is about getting independent from Russia on the different energy sources. By 2030, but the president of the commission indicated in the press conference, even by 2027. So this is, as Miguel Cañete mentioned, is an incredible challenge for the European Union. But according to our impact assessment, we can do it. This is doable, and we have to do all our efforts in the European institutions, with member states, or with all our stakeholders to achieve this important target. We need to act on three main fronts. The first one is to replace our immediate needs of gas from Russia. And we need, in the immediate term, we cannot replace gas by renewables, because this requires time, and we cannot replace all fossil fuels overnight. We need time for that. And we have a very clear target by 2030 and our climate neutrality by 2050. But we need to replace Russian gas by LNG and other gas pipeline for more reliable suppliers. And here, obviously, we have our main supplier of energy is the US. An important presidential statement, President Biden and President von der Leyen, was two presidential statements were already signed the beginning of this year. The first one in January and the second one the 25th of March, where the US has committed to supply more LNG to the European Union. 15 additional BCM this year, and onwards 50 BCM every year. This is important because 50 is exactly 1/3 of the gas that we import from Russia. And there is also an important, because everybody say, okay, but if we are now in the urgency to buy gas, what about price? Because maybe gas from the LNG or gas from other sources could be more expensive than Russian gas. And that's the reason why, and it's important just to make reference to this point, that in the presidential statement, there is also a reference to the US hub, the Henry Hub has. This price has to be borne in mind when our traders fix the different contract with the LNG, the American LNG suppliers. So we are also doing international outreach with other sources, other countries that could also provide more reliable gas supplier in this precise moment. So I want to mention Qatar, I want to mention Norway, I would like to mention Egypt and Israel, where we are also working on a memorandum of understanding. We are also working very closely with Azerbaijan, with the European Union supported the Southern Gas Corridor. That's already by December 2020, we received the first BCM gas in the European Union. In particular, we are getting now 8.6 BCM, and we plan to achieve 10 BCM, and in the future, probably the possibility to double this capacity. So these are very concrete and specific examples of this diversification from Russia. And the other two very important points that we need, obviously, to achieve by repower is that the only way to replace this 155 BCM is also accelerating the green transition, the green energy transition. And for that, we need to go for further deployment of renewables, and we had to go for more energy savings. So Miguel Cañete already indicated that we have gone for a higher target for both energy efficiency and renewables. And on renewables, I would like to call your attention on the one significant proposal that is included in the repower package, is the permitting proposal. You might know that today building a wind farm in the European Union takes around 7 years, which is really a lot. So we cannot afford such a long permitting period. So now with this permitting proposal, we are trying to shorten the time in that member states need to give the permission to photovoltaic and wind farm installation in the European Union. And finally, maybe one word on investment, also to complement what Miguel Cañete has already mentioned. In the repower, we have an important leg also related to investment. We have proposed to extend the recovery and resilience plans with an additional 300 billion euros that member state could use as a new leg of the RRPs, the recovery and resilience plans, that need to be focused on security of supply. And here there will be additional budget for deployment of renewables, for deployment of energy savings, but also to very targeted and specific gas and oil investment. Very targeted because obviously we cannot go, I mean, again, the repower builds on the Fit for 55. We are not abandoned, we are not backtracking, on the contrary, we are accelerating the Fit for 55, but we need very specific and targeted investment on some infrastructure that could help and will help indeed to accelerate the objective to get independent from the Russian fossil fuels. I stop here. I think that now the most important point will be also to listen to other panelists and to go for the Q&A sessions. Thank you very much.
Thank you for this very important input and for saying clearly and with examples, we can do it. And we have decided to do it in a multiple phase. So that does not put into question what Miguel just said before. It will be very difficult, and certainly our next speaker is going to analyze the degree of difficulty and of risk also, but also the degree of risk when we don't do it from the point of view of the researcher. Javier de Cendra, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Viviane. Thank you so much to the World Jurist Association for the invitation to participate at this panel. And indeed, a lot of very interesting remarks and a lot of data has been provided so far by the two previous speakers. So allow me to provide a slightly different angle to try and indeed complement and answer specifically the issue about the risks we might be facing right now. I think the first point, and an obvious one, but important one, is that this crisis caused by the Russian invasion of Ukraine is indeed of a global nature. And although it has a clear impact on the energy world markets, it does have other impacts as well. And most importantly, we cannot be sure yet as to the evolution of that crisis. And this, of course, is going to have an impact on the capacity of the EU to make progress on its climate change and energy policy, legal and regulatory framework. So we need to look at it as a global issue in which the EU, of course, has a very important stake. And from that perspective, from the global perspective, we need to take into account and to keep in mind that the EU has been making indeed a lot of progress in the last, I would say, 2 decades, a bit over 2 decades on the road towards decarbonization. So this crisis is important, but it does not have, in principle, the capacity to derail the transition of the EU towards decarbonization unless the war really acquires a more global dimension. And this is for 2 reasons. This is because the EU has indeed been not only expanding its legal and regulatory framework to promote decarbonization, but also has deepened it substantially over time. So the legal framework, the law on paper, has been evolving to such an extent that indeed, as Cristina was discussing a moment ago, it really has covered all the emissions from the entire EU, whether in the ETS or outside of the ETS. Moreover, it has a clear pathway all the way towards 2050 to achieve climate neutrality. Now, this law in paper would not be enough if it was not for the fact that the EU has, by and large, achieved the goals it had set for itself. So we have a very current report, the latest report from the European Environment Agency, the Trends and Projections in Europe 2021. It does say that the EU has achieved all its 3 2020 climate and energy targets of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 20% compared to 1990 levels. It has increased its share of renewable energy up to 20%, and it has improved energy efficiency also by that much. Moreover, although the latest reductions are connected to the COVID-19 pandemic and the magnitude of the rebounds is not clear yet, it is clear nonetheless, according to the agency, that the EU has achieved those targets and is on track to achieve the 2030 targets. So this is my first point. My first point is that we have a lot of inertia in the system, and in this case, positive inertia. Now, it is also important to keep in mind that the challenges that now the EU is going to face towards achievement of the 2050 climate neutrality have to do in part with the Ukrainian war, but they go beyond that. And the impacts are not clear at all yet. The impacts could slow down a little bit the transition, could mean or imply a small detour, but it could also derail it if the war would indeed acquire a more global dimension. And the reason for this is that the challenges can be classified in three types of challenges. The first one has to do with the necessary physical building blocks to move ahead in this transition. The second one has to do with the economic and social adjustments. And the third one has to do with the governance, the institutions, and the commitments. So let me just explain a little bit each one of those challenges. If we look about the necessary physical building blocks, we have to consider the amount of technology innovation still needed. We also need to consider the need to create supply chains that enable the deployment of new technologies, many of which are global in nature, but also the availability of natural resources that are needed. And here we have a challenge. The first one is that Russia itself is one of the main exporters of materials such as copper, nickel, or silicon, which are essential for the most important net zero technologies, such as onshore and offshore wind turbines, solar panels, electric vehicles, battery storage, and so on and so forth. But there is also a fact that the need to answer to the Russian invasion of Ukraine towards an acceleration of the penetration of renewable energy means that the global demands for these rare materials is only going to increase. And Europe has resources on the ground, but is not a large producer so far of many of those materials. So it will either have to ramp up the production, and we know, for instance, that in Spain has many of these resources in abundance, and or it will have to import from other regions. Also, another challenge is the fact that the transition was going to involve always an increase in energy prices. That we know. That this Russian invasion of Ukraine has significantly increased those energy prices. This has a good influence on the transition, but also a more problematic one. The good one is that the market signals for the expansion of investments into renewable energy and energy efficiency are much more clear now. So in some cases, some industries that were hard to decarbonize might start considering investing in renewable energy solutions, in substitutes indeed. And one of those substitutes might be hydrogen, preferably green or blue hydrogen for some industrial sectors. But on the other hand, it has the potential to create a lot of energy poverty, which is moreover compounded by the recession generated by COVID. We have the example of Spain, where this new phase of the economic crisis is getting more and more serious with very high inflation, almost 10% this year, growth in GDP that is nowhere near what was estimated by the government not so long ago, and indeed the incapacity by a large amount of population to face for a long time the increase in energy prices. So certainly there needs to be some activities, some public intervention, governmental intervention, as indeed it has taken place already in Spain, following up the Repower Europe analysis from the Commission and the possibilities for taking some measures that align with EU law and EU state aid law to indeed control the increase in energy prices. Of course, another dimension of these adjustments is that even though countries, member states of the EU have the green light from the EU Commission to compensates for the increased energy prices, both to producers and to consumers, the fact is that in the context of an economic crisis and in the context of a need to ramp up investment, for instance, in defense policy, it is uncertain the amount of resources that will be available for these policies, for these compensation policies. But also the next dimension of these risks has to do with governance, with institutions, and with commitments. It seems to be that the war is generating certainly a big change in the global world order, but also we see that Russia is getting support from a number of member states, a number of states throughout the world, and this has the potential to make more complex the global supply chains that are needed for the transition. Indeed, we are looking, and the EU has devoted quite a bit of time in the Repower Europe to look at external energy policy and to look at the necessity to work with reliable partners. And here in those reliable partners, there are traditional reliable partners, let's say the EU or Canada or Australia mentioned in the documents from the Commission, but also other partners in the transition, in the climate transition. China, for instance, is a leader in the production of renewable energy windmills or solar panels, and it has a vested interest in ensuring that global supply chains do work properly, not least to keep exporting to the European Union its own products. So there is a need for the European Union to work and make sure that the supply chains needed for this transition are not weakened and new ones are created, for instance, in the context of hydrogen, but also to work to make sure that the standards for hydrogen, for instance, are adopted and are adopted globally, because otherwise the uptake of hydrogen is going to be seriously limited. And also it needs to make sure that multinational corporations have enough certainty to cooperate through investment in this transition. And multinational corporations, of course, are facing a lot of political risk right now. So all in all, I would say by way of conclusion that, and some experts will agree with this, in the context of the global contraction of GDP, 3.3% this year, and the increase in global public debt as well, 28% this year, up to 256% of global public debt globally. The challenges to achieve a transition that for the EU would not be too problematic are indeed gathering speed. And although the right measures, the right policy measures, and the right legal measures are certainly in place, I will agree completely with the previous speakers on this, especially Miguel, the challenges are very large indeed, and they might mean a detour, a delay, and hopefully not a complete disruption. I don't believe so, but we need to consider that possibility as well. And with that, I conclude my first intervention. Thank you so much.
Well, he started with a very optimistic, positive note to say that we have already done it once. So we are absolutely capable to keep our targets, but the challenges are enormous. So let me take out to start the discussion among the speakers one of those challenges, and I think that many people who listen to us will ask themselves that questions: how far can we control this, what Javier told, the energy poverty, inflation plus prices, and capacity of or non-capacity of the member states to compensate, changing of the rules also for compensation, which have been set up by the European Union. So how does all this influence not only our industry, but mostly our citizens? Miguel, the floor is yours first.
Well, certainly it's a very complex situation, because it is true that when we have engaged in an energy transition, we are getting away from fossil fuels that emit greenhouse gases and going to renewable energy, who will be cheaper in the end. So we will arrive as an energy system, which at the end of the way or in the middle of the way will be cheaper than the actual one. And that's really is the problem. Is the problem. We are going in the right direction because we have to electrify our economy, and we have to arrive to an energy mix in which electricity 80% will be produced by renewable sources, and also there will be nuclear energy on that will be also there delivering clean energy, and at the same time we will have hydrogen and other gases. In the end, we will have a system which will be cheaper, more efficient, and will respect the environment, because we have a responsibility, a global responsibility, to be leaders on the climate change battle. This is very clear. It's also clear that in a moment like this, and we have a very peculiar situation, the economic recovery after COVID, which has made the countries, all the countries, grow at very high levels and has demanded more use of energy, and the impact that that gas is having in the electricity system and in the markets, so mainly marginal markets, that creates the governments start to be very nervous. Many. Some governments have asked that our market design should be changed. And they think that changing the rules of the market, electricity market, all the problems are solved. Probably no. It has taken many years to deliver an integrated electricity and gas market, and they have worked properly. Acer said, what were the benefits for the consumer? 34 billion euro is the assessment of Acer. But it's true that households are experiencing now very high prices. And then there are many possibilities. The Commission produced a toolbox, a wonderful document with many solutions that the governments could pick and choose, all of them, not affecting the functioning of the markets. But nevertheless, there have been some countries who have asked to change absolutely the markets to solve the problem. This is not a magician act, so that in a minute you will solve the problems. Not at all. Because tackling with gas prices in order that they have not done affect the wholesale market, the wholesale market is not so easy a challenge. And the problem is how to maintain markets that work and how to support those in energy poverty or those households and small and medium companies. There is one of the possibilities is to use the resources coming from the auctions in the emission trading system, which is something that the member state can do, and they can do targeted support, because many of the measures put on the table are not targeted. The member states are doing all kinds of things. For example, in Spain, there is a discount in the price of gasoline and diesel, the same to everybody, to the richest man in Spain and to the poor man. But the discount is there the same. So this is not a targeted measure. On the other side, if you change the rules of the market, if you tax what you call windfall profits, which is not a profit who comes from the wind, is the functioning of the market, who establish price signals in order to deliver a development of renewable energy and make investors and go to that situation. So it's really a complex. But the important thing is to have balance and measures who are exceptional, who are temporary, and who respect the fundamentals of the regulations of the European Union. In that role, the Commission has has to evaluate how are those measures. But what I think is the faster we develop renewables, the faster we produce clean energy, the sooner consumers will have better prices. The market has been functioning well during all these years with low prices for consumers. We are in a transitional moment, but we cannot try to change absolutely the rules of the market, because that will be a mistake. Fortunately, Acer and those who have make in-depth analysis have make assessments, and the Commission will build on them, establishing what are the changes that the electricity and gas market have to be done in the future. But there are some proposals of some governments who, in my own view, they go in the wrong direction. This intervention, and the cost will be more than the benefits of the measure, because we have seen some member states who have put some laws into action, and then they have to reform them 15 days later, because they haven't calculated the side impacts of the measure. So I think we have built in the European Union a gas, an electricity market very well developed. It has taken lots of time. Now we are in the middle of a new reform with the Fit for 55, but the Fit for 55 doesn't touch reforms of the markets at the moment. Touches many others, touches energy efficiency, touches renewables, ETS, the whole package. It's a very important one, but the Commission will have to look after whether all the improvements that the market can be done, but done with an impact assessment, an in-depth assessment, with a stakeholder consultation, and trying to look for solutions that remain over time, not just to solve a problem in 1 minute and create 10 problems for the next 10 years.
Thank you, Miguel. Well, that was clear, very clear. You say that some of the government inventions have a higher cost than the cost of the problem. Should we change the rules of the market or keep to a more solid toolbox of the Commission? And then I add to this a question which we received online. Will the ESG be put in danger by the war in Ukraine? So please, Cristina, it's your turn to try to answer these very tricky questions.
Thank you very much. Maybe just very briefly, a few comments on the situation on prices, and then I will obviously go to the question of the European Green Deal. I think that the most important point is that energy poverty is obviously at the core of the European Commission priorities. And this has been even more and more relevant in the context of very high prices. So it's true that the toolbox was issued by the Commission at the very beginning when we experienced this very high surge on energy prices. So the purpose was to compensate the most vulnerable consumers and also the most vulnerable small enterprises. So here, I think that we have the statistics in the European Commission, so it has been proved that it really served to this purpose. Then the elephant in the room is the electricity market design, whether the current design should be reformed or not. And here, I would like also to draw your attention on a communication that makes part of the Repower Plan, where the Commission has made some very clear ideas on how we can act in the gas market, but also in the electricity markets, in a case of full disruption of electricity or gas in the European Union. Before going to this reform, I think that we need in the European Union, all the institutions, not only the European Commission, the European Parliament, member states, stakeholders, we need to reflect properly on that. Because it's true that what is at the root is the very high gas prices. And this is what we need to look into that. So it's true that the electricity market design currently has provided huge benefits for the European consumers. And now before going into a reform, we need to look into the different ideas, because I mean, we cannot target the high gas prices with a reform of the market. Maybe some adaptations could be needed, but before we need the proper reflection based on this communication that I really draw your attention on that. So with regard to the whether the war of Ukraine can put into danger both the sustainable goals or also the European Green Deal, I don't think so. I think that it's just the opposite. I don't like to call that crises are opportunities. I prefer that crises never happen, but once they happen, there are different ways to overcome this crisis. And in a particular case of Ukraine and our dependency from Russia, I think that the repower goes for somehow an acceleration of our sustainable policy. We have there the targets, we have there the investments, and for me, it's just the opposite. I don't think it's maybe the fact that we are opening the door to some very targeted investments on gas and even oil, because it's true that when we discuss the sixth package of sanctions, we have also made clear that two member states in Central Europe, Hungary and Slovakia, they have almost full dependency from the Russian oil. And this is a reality today as well. So that's the reason why we have put on the table the possibility to invest on very targeted infrastructure to help those countries who are most in need. But again, for me, the repower is an opportunity to accelerate, to further deploy renewable energies. I want also to call your attention on one important source of energy is hydrogen. Hydrogen has not been mentioned so far in this event. And in the European Commission, we consider hydrogen as one of the most important energy sources in the future. It's true that currently we don't have a huge development of hydrogen. In the European Union, only 2% of the hydrogen we produce and consume is renewable hydrogen. We need to further develop technologies, electrolyzers to produce green hydrogen. But there is one figure in the communication that is very important. We need to import by 2030 additional 10 million tons of hydrogen, and to produce domestically 10 million tons of hydrogen, which is really, I mean, it's very challenging, but we have the investment on the table just to further deploy the electrolyzers that are needed for that, and also to reach out international partners who have very strong potential to produce hydrogen. There are some countries in Latin America, but also some countries in the north of Africa. So we really need to liaise with them and to reach out in order to achieve this target. So for me, Repower is a new opportunity also to even to more relations with our international partners to exchange know-how, and it's an opportunity to achieve together the objectives of the Paris Agreement. So Repower is, in my view, an accelerator of these sustainable goals and the Green Deal in the European Union. Thank you.
Thank you for this very strong answer. Yes, actually, the invasion of Ukraine was a wake-up call for Europeans to understand that if they want to have their own power in their hand, well, they have to change some of the rules and of the behavior. Now, in his intervention before, Javier has been in the framework of the energy crisis, quoting the renewable investment mostly into the green hydrogen. So he has already spoken about this. Now, Cristina has underlined that hydrogen might be one of the chances for the future development. I give the floor then back to Javier, maybe to look at this specific theme.
Okay, yeah. Well, indeed, there has a little bit been said about hydrogen, and as one of the main or one of the elements indeed in the energy mix that has the potential to promote the achievement of the Paris Agreement's targets. Now, of course, much has been discussed about it in the face of the International Energy Agency forecasts about global energy demands, which is indeed going to increase. And of course, these are just figures that go way into the future, but the IEA is talking about an increase of between 25 and 30% or so of increasing global energy demands by 2040. And that will need clean energies, including hydrogen. Now, hydrogen is usually characterized in three as coming from three different sources, and that gives way to the names of green, blue, or gray hydrogen. The gray hydrogen is the one that is coming from fossil fuels, and the blue hydrogen is the one coming from renewable energy sources. The green one is the one that would have a zero in net terms contribution to greenhouse gas emissions. So from the perspective of climate change, it would contribute to the targets, just like blue hydrogen. Now, the problem with green hydrogen, I mean, the problem, it's not a problem, but some of the questions or the challenges about its viability have to do with the high production costs and the comparison with renewable energy costs. As Miguel was discussing before, in the long term, with an 80% penetration of renewable energy, and marginal costs of most renewable energy sources being close to zero, it is unclear what will the contribution of green hydrogen be to the energy mix. This has to do with the investments, being made now in green hydrogen. The Repower Europe indeed is banking on it, is trying to increase the share of green hydrogen in the energy mix, but so is China, for instance, or Australia or Canada. So there are good reasons to think that if the right investment is made, if standards for green hydrogen are developed globally, if the infrastructure progresses quick enough, green hydrogen will make an interesting contribution to the energy mix. So of course, in transport and mobility, but also as energy storage. And this goes to show them the versatility of hydrogen as a carrier. It can help in very hard to decarbonize energy sectors, but also it can help a lot in the transportation sector.
I would like to thank the three speakers for their insight. We have very little time left, but we have problems left, which we did not touch. And I would propose that in the next discussion, we concentrate, for instance, only on hydrogen, or we concentrate only on this very important question of governance, which we won't have time to touch on seriously. But those are the elements which will bring us forward and where we need to know where we go and how we go there. If I can make a very small resume of what has been said, at least what I have taken away from this is, yes, it will be difficult, but yes, we have already shown that we are capable to do it. And to know the invasion of Ukraine is not going to be a step back for what we are doing, but a step forward, because it was a wake-up call. And we are going to do things in a more concerted way, and we have to invest in the right way, and we have to do it quickly. So that is what, in a positive way, I take out of the contribution of these three wonderful speakers we have had. I thank all of you, and I give the floor to Javier Cremades so that he can give the last intervention.
Thank you very much, Christian, Viviane Reding, for your leadership and your moderation in this roundtable. Thank you, Commissioner Arias Cañete. Thank you, Professor de Cendra. Thank you, Cristina Lobillo. It has been a pleasure learning from you. As Viviane was mentioning, this is the first discussion we're starting with the energy sector. I think it's connected with the purpose of the World Jurist Association to promote peace through law. So that means the rule of law is going to govern not just the economy or the touristic industry or the health industry, but also the regulated industries like the energy industry. I think we need good policies to serve the citizens. We need the stability in the regulation of the industry. We need to make clear some points. I like the idea of Commissioner Arias Cañete that wind for profit are not just dropping from the air, but that's part of the incentives that we are producing and we are using to decarbonize the economy. Is something we really need, and where Europe should not be at crossroads, should be at full speed in order to accelerate this transition in any way. Thank you, everybody, for attending this first opening session. This roundtable will be held live in presence in New York in July 23rd. And I hope you all can also attend and enjoy. So please be focused on the next meeting. We will come back to you and we will present the agenda for the next month. So thank you, Viviane. Thank you, Mr. Cañete, Mr. Cendra, Mrs. Lobillo, and hope to see you soon. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you very much indeed. Bye.
Bye-bye.